The struggle for supremacy is eternal, inevitable. Victory is the natural objective of every creature on this world. They will kill and die for their kind to dominate. Some call this eternal struggle equilibrium, the balance between light and darkness.
Castlevania has been strangely absent from the console scene for a while now, since Curse of Darkness on the PS2 and Xbox to be more precise. Recently, the beloved series has found its success on the DS, pumping out more Symphony of the Night style games and allowing the series to go in the direction fans wanted to. Until now, that is. Konami outsourced the franchise to a little known developer named Mercury Steam, and they brought us Castlevania Lords of Shadow. Can this outsourced franchise survive the transition, or will it be begging for the stake through the heart? The story follows one Gabriel Belmont and is credited as the first in the franchise, with Gabriel being the first Belmont to wield the famous whip, this time embedded into a combat cross. Gabriel is on a quest to avenge the murder of his wife by the evils plaguing the land, and the best way to avenge her is to save the world from evil. It sounds like a pretty simple story, and a lot like God of War's plot, and that's because it is. Despite being pretty similar to both God of War and Dante's Inferno, it holds its own due to the events that play out in it and for having a more brooding main character. Gabriel's a great protagonist and helps make the story stand out more. It's a well-written tragedy that, while not remaining very faithful to Castlevania, will still hold up in the future. While the story will hold up, I'm sad to say that the gameplay will not. Just like its story, it's similar to God of War and Dante's Inferno in the gameplay department, and while they aren't bad games, the gameplay here feels much worse than its rivals. The whip feels weaker and looks weaker than Kratos' blades, and Gabriel's movement is stiff, as is his dodging and blocking. You fight hordes of enemies throughout linear stages that vary only in environment for the most part. As you kill enemies, you earn experience points that are used to purchase new abilities. These new abilities try to make the combat more fun, but the combat feels so poor that it fails to help. There are a lot of enemy types and they should be fun to fight, but something just feels off with the combat. Aside from combat, you'll be running forward, climbing, or solving puzzles. The running and climbing are fine, though the climbing can be picky at times, but the puzzles are usually frustrating and can be solved at any time by foregoing the experience earned from completion. I can see why this mechanic was invented, but it seems like a lazy way out of making poor puzzles. That's not to say it's all bad. The combat can be fun against some of the bosses, and some puzzles are good. It's just hidden beneath a poor God of War clone, and coming out after God of War 3, much better game to play, doesn't help things either. On the audio front, the game is top-notch. The voice work is done by TV actors such as Robert Carlyle and Patrick Stewart, and they make the characters come to life. The well-written script, wonderful narration by Patrick Stewart, and fantastic music add some beauty and sadness to the world around Gabriel. The music might be inferior to most other Castlevania music, focusing on more somber tones, but it throws some of the original music in at some cool moments. If anything is said about Lords of Shadow, it's that Gabriel and Zobek are voiced perfectly. The visuals are another thing Mercury's team got right. The dark fantasy setting is perfect for Castlevania, and both the character design and enemy design are fantastically fitting and well done. Some of the environments are beautiful and some are dark and depressing, although some more actual castles would be a welcome addition. The only nitpick I have about the visuals is the talking animation. It's sort of bland. Other than that, it's a beautifully dark and very Castlevania looking game. Overall, Castlevania Lords of Shadow is worth playing at least once. It has a brilliant story, great characters, great voice work, and beautiful music and visuals. The only thing wrong with the game is the most important thing about a game, the gameplay. With the gameplay as it is, I can't fully recommend it regardless of how good the rest of the game is. The worst part, it's hard to explain why the gameplay is so poor, it just feels off. Nevertheless, it's still a fine product, it just fails as a game. Come for the presentation, stay for the story, I say. Gabriel has avenged this game with an 8 out of 10.